My daughter gave me a brand new tablet for my 68th birthday. A sleek, expensive piece of glass and metal that looked like a gateway to the modern world. I had no idea that when I brought it to my grandson's house to ask for help, I was carrying the instrument of my own destruction. It wasn't until 11 days later, when the truth finally shattered my reality, that I realized the gift was never a gesture of love. It was a weapon designed to strip me of my assets, my home, and my freedom. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Karma Dad. Before we start, tell me, have you ever sensed a betrayal coming before it happened? Let me know below. Here is how a birthday present almost cost me my freedom. I turned 68 on a Saturday in late October, when the Ontario autumn had already stripped most of the trees bare, leaving the streets of Oakville covered in a damp carpet of red and gold. I woke up alone in the house I had shared with my wife, Joanne, for 40 years, waking up to the same silence that had filled the hallways since she passed away 4 years ago. The coffee maker clicked on at 7 a.m., a creature of habit just like me, and I shuffled into the kitchen wearing my old University of Toronto sweatshirt. Joan used to tease me that it made me look like a retired professor, which was accurate enough, considering I had spent 32 years teaching high school history before finally hanging up the chalk. My phone sat quiet on the counter, devoid of messages. At my age, birthdays aren't exactly celebrated with fanfare anymore. They are just milestones you are grateful to reach without a new ache in your joints. Around noon, the doorbell finally rang, cutting through the quiet hum of the refrigerator. My daughter, Laura, stood on the porch holding a large gift bag adorned with a bright yellow bow. She was smiling, but it was that careful, practiced smile she had been wearing for the past year, ever since she started dating a new man. "Happy birthday, Dad," Laura said, stepping inside as she handed me the heavy bag. "I wanted to get you something special this year, something useful." I pulled out the tablet, still sealed in its pristine white box. It was one of those top-tier models with the expansive screen, a device that must have cost her at least $800. I shook my head, feeling the weight of the expense. "Laura, this is too much. You shouldn't have spent this kind of money on me." She kissed my cheek, a gesture that felt both familiar and distant. "Mom always said you needed to get with the times. Dad, now you can video call me properly, read your history books without squinting, and check your investments. Everything in one place." I held the box and felt something crack open in my chest. She remembered. After everything, after Joan's death, after my retirement, and after all the emotional distance that had grown between us recently, my daughter had remembered my birthday and put thought into my life. Suddenly, I wasn't standing in that lonely kitchen anymore. My mind drifted back to our old backyard in Burlington, 30 years ago. Laura was 8 years old, running toward me across the grass with a homemade card in her hand, her pigtails bouncing with every step. She had drawn a picture of us together, stick figures holding hands under a massive yellow sun. "I made this for you, Daddy," she had said, breathless and grinning with missing front teeth. "Because you're the best dad in the whole world." Joan had watched from the deck, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, smiling that warm smile I missed every single day. Everything was ahead of us then. Everything seemed possible. The memory dissolved as quickly as it had come, leaving me back in my kitchen, a 68-year-old widower holding a tablet I didn't know how to use. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you know." Laura stayed for lunch, and we ate sandwiches at the kitchen table just like we used to. She asked about my health, my sleep patterns, and whether I had been keeping up with my doctor's appointments. They seemed like normal, caring questions from a concerned daughter. "How are the investments doing? Is the house too much work for you alone?" she asked casually between bites. I answered honestly, touched by her interest. I didn't notice that her tone felt rehearsed, or that she seemed to be checking items off a mental list rather than engaging in conversation. After she left, I spent the afternoon trying to figure out the device, managing only to turn it on and stare at the setup screen. That night, I plugged it in to charge and felt a warmth I hadn't felt in months. My daughter was thinking about me. Maybe we could rebuild what we had lost. As I turned off the lights, I slept peacefully, having no idea I had just voluntarily placed a high-tech surveillance device in the heart of my sanctuary. The following Thursday, I drove down to my grandson's apartment in downtown Toronto. Connor was my son, Peter's boy, 27 years old and sharp as a tack. He worked as a cybersecurity analyst for one of the major banks, spending his days protecting digital fortunes from invisible thieves. I wanted him to help me set up my email and perhaps show me how to use the video calling feature so I could thank Laura properly. Connor made us a pot of coffee while I explained my confusion with the device, stumbling over terms like interface and account settings. He was patient, displaying that careful kindness young people often reserve for the elderly. A gentleness that makes you feel both grateful and slightly diminished. "Let me take a look, Grandpa," he said, taking the tablet from my hands and sitting on the edge of his sofa. "I'll get everything configured for you in no time." I watched him work, sipping my coffee and feeling proud of the man he had become. The apartment was small but tidy, a testament to his disciplined nature. Connor tapped and swiped through the screens with the fluid speed of a generation born into technology. However, after about 5 minutes, the atmosphere in the room shifted abruptly. Connor's expression changed. I noticed it immediately. There was a slight tightening around his eyes, and his thumb stopped its rhythmic moving across the glass. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. "Grandpa," he said, not looking up from the screen, his voice unusually low. "Where exactly did you get this?" "Your Aunt Laura," I replied, confused by his tone. "It was a birthday present." Connor didn't respond right away. He just kept staring at the screen, navigating through deep system menus I couldn't even begin to understand. "Daniel, is everything all right?" I asked, mistakenly slipping and almost calling him by his middle name. But he looked up at me, and I saw something I had never seen on my grandson's face before: fear. "Did Aunt Laura set this up for you before she gave it to you?" He asked, urgency in his voice. "I don't think so," I said, setting my mug down. "It was sealed in the box. Plastic wrap and everything." "It wasn't," Connor said, his voice flat and terrifyingly serious. "Someone configured this before you opened it, Grandpa. They installed monitoring software. Professional grade, the kind we usually see in corporate espionage cases." My coffee went cold in my stomach. "What are you saying?" Connor set the tablet down on the coffee table carefully, as if it were a live grenade. "I'm saying someone can see everything you do on this device. Every website you visit, every password you type, every email you send. They can even activate the camera and microphone remotely without the indicator light coming on. They can watch you, Grandpa. They can listen to you in your own home." The room seemed to tilt on its axis. "That's not possible," I stammered. "Laura gave me this." "Maybe it was the manufacturer, some kind of defect?" Connor shook his head firmly. "No, this is deliberate. Someone specifically routed this device to monitor you before it was wrapped in that birthday paper." I stared at the innocent-looking slab of glass. "It was a gift from my daughter. What do I do?" I whispered. Connor was already reaching for his own phone, his face set in grim determination. "We need to document this," he said, "and then we are calling the police." Detective Maria Gomez met us at the Toronto Police Service's Financial Crimes Unit the next morning. She was a woman in her mid-40s with a steel-spined posture and eyes that seemed to analyze everything they touched, conveying that she had seen every variety of human deceit. Connor had made copies of every line of code he had found on the tablet, presenting his findings with the precision of someone testifying in a high-stakes trial. Gomez examined his documentation carefully, asking technical questions that flew over my head, while Connor answered each one confidently. Finally, she looked up, clasping her hands on the gray metal desk. "Sir," she said, turning her attention fully to me, "your grandson is correct. This device was configured as a dedicated surveillance tool before you ever received it. Whoever did this has root access to everything: your real-time location, your private communications, and your financial information if you access banking sites." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Despite the warm, stale air in the room. I haven't used it for banking yet, I said, my voice trembling slightly. Thank God for my technological incompetence. I suppose that is fortunate, but we need to look at the bigger picture. Gomez replied, leaning back in her chair and studying me. Mr. Bryan, I am going to be direct. Does anyone have a significant financial motive to monitor you? Do you possess substantial assets, life insurance policies, or property without a mortgage? I hesitated, the question feeling invasive, yet necessary. I thought about the life Joan and I had built, brick by brick. I'm comfortable, I answered slowly, trying to maintain my dignity. My teacher's pension isn't extravagant, but it's steady. The house in Oakville is fully paid off. It's worth close to $2 million in today's market. Joan and I were good savers, so there are investments, RRSPs, and a life insurance policy worth $750,000. I paused, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. The beneficiary is supposed to be split between my children, Laura and Peter. Detective Gomez nodded as if she had expected exactly those numbers. In my experience, when family members install this level of surveillance equipment on elderly relatives, it is rarely out of innocent curiosity or safety concerns. There is usually a much larger, more malicious plan in motion. The phrase elderly relatives stung, transforming me from a father into a target, a problem to be solved. What kind of plan? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. Financial exploitation, guardianship fraud, and power of attorney abuse. She listed the crimes matter-of-factly, her voice grim. Someone wants access to your assets, and they are building a case to take control of them legally before draining them dry. Connor put a steadying hand on my arm, his grip tight and protective. Grandpa, who gave you this tablet? I couldn't say it. I couldn't make my mouth form the name of the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders. Detective Gomez did it for me, her voice stripping away the last of my denial. The evidence points to the person who gave you the device. We are looking at your daughter, Laura. I drove home in a daze that afternoon, the world outside my windshield reduced to a blur of gray asphalt in muted autumn colors. The tablet sat in an evidence bag back in Detective Maria Gomez's office, but its invisible weight still pressed down on my chest. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a long time, staring at the house Joan and I had bought 40 years ago. We had raised our children here, celebrated holidays, birthdays, and graduations within these walls. Joan had planted the rose bushes by the front door the year Laura was born. I looked at them now, withered by the coming winter, and thought of my daughter, my firstborn, the little girl who had made me Father's Day cards out of dried macaroni and construction paper, the woman who had held my hand at Joan's funeral and told me everything would be all right. That same woman now wanted to surveil me. I went inside, made a dinner I couldn't taste, and went to bed early. But sleep was impossible. I just lay there in the dark, listening to the house creak and settle, wondering where I had gone wrong. The call from Detective Gomez came 3 days later on a Tuesday morning, shattering the silence of my kitchen. Mr. Bryan, are you sitting down? She asked, her voice professional but laced with a grim gravity. I lowered myself slowly into a kitchen chair, gripping the phone tight. I am now, I replied. We have been investigating your daughter's recent activities, financial records, and known associates. She paused, letting the words hang in the air before delivering the blow. Are you aware that Laura has been in a relationship with a man named Marcus Sterling? The name sounded vaguely familiar. Laura had mentioned him once or twice casually, the way you mention a new coworker or a neighbor, never as someone significant. She said she's dating someone, but I've never met him. I said, Marcus Sterling has a criminal record in British Columbia. Gomez continued, her tone hardening. Fraud. Elder financial abuse. He served 18 months in a provincial correctional facility after exploiting a 73-year-old woman in Victoria. He got her to sign over power of attorney and then drained her accounts of nearly $200,000. My hands started shaking so violently I had to put the phone on speaker and set it on the table. That's not all, Gomez said, relentless in her delivery of the truth. We subpoenaed some documents this morning. Mr. Bryan, did you recently change the beneficiary on your life insurance policy? No, never. I insisted. It's split between Laura and my son, Peter. There was a rustling of papers on her end. According to Canada Life, the beneficiary was changed 7 months ago. Your son, Peter, was removed entirely. Laura is now the sole beneficiary for the full $750,000. The kitchen spun around me. I never signed anything. I gasped, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. We suspected as much. The signature on file doesn't match your known samples. Someone forged your name. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My own daughter had erased her brother from my legacy and forged my signature to secure a payout upon my death. There is more, Gomez added, driving the final nail into the coffin of my denial. We found evidence that someone has been making inquiries about guardianship proceedings in Ontario, specifically about having you declared mentally incapable of managing your own affairs. Mentally incapable. The words hit me like a physical blow to the gut. On what grounds? I whispered. That is what we need your help to find out, she replied. Mr. Bryan, I know this is difficult, but if we are going to build a case that sticks, we need evidence of intent. We need to know exactly what they are planning and why. She then explained what she wanted me to do, a strategy that terrified me. She wanted me to take the tablet back, which her team had modified to monitor the surveillance connection, and continue using it. I need you to act, she said. Let them think their surveillance is working. Feed them information, carefully controlled. Act confused. Act vulnerable. See how they respond. You want me to spy on my own daughter? I asked, my voice breaking. I want you to protect yourself. Gomez replied firmly, before she takes everything you have. That night, I sat alone in my living room with the tablet resting heavily in my lap. Detective Gomez had returned it to me earlier that afternoon, modified now so her team could monitor who was monitoring me. A trap set within a trap. I opened the device and started talking, not to anyone in the room, but to the invisible audience I now knew was listening on the other end. I've been thinking about the house lately, I said to myself, pitching my voice loud enough for the microphone to catch clearly. It's getting too big for one person. Maybe I should think about selling. Downsize to a condo. Get my affairs in order. The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but I kept going, forcing a tremor into my tone. The doctor says I've been forgetting things. Maybe I should look into getting some help. I just can't manage everything on my own anymore. They were lies. All lies. My memory was as sharp as ever, and my health was decent for a man of my age. But I was building a character now, the confused, vulnerable senior who needed managing, giving them exactly what they wanted to hear. The response came faster than I expected. Laura called the very next morning, her voice bright and cheerful. Dad, I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling today? Oh, getting old, I said, letting my voice waver slightly. Some days are better than others. I feel a bit overwhelmed. I worry about you alone in that big house. Dad, she replied, and I could hear the excitement she was trying poorly to conceal. Have you thought about what we discussed? Maybe looking at some options? We hadn't discussed anything, but I played along. I have been thinking about it. You might be right. Maybe it is time to make some changes. That's so good to hear, she said, relief flooding her tone. I can come by this weekend. We can look at some things together, do some financial planning, maybe get everything organized for you. That would be nice, sweetheart, I said, closing my eyes against the pain of the deception. I think I need the help. Laura arrived on Saturday with a thick folder full of documents and that same careful, practiced smile. She spread papers across my kitchen table while I made tea, playing the role of the forgetful father who needed guidance. I've been doing some research, she said, sliding glossy brochures toward me. There are some wonderful retirement communities near here. Full service. They handle everything for you. I looked at the pictures. Assisted living facilities, memory care units, places where society warehouses the elderly until they stop being inconvenient. And I talked to a lawyer friend, she continued, her voice smooth and persuasive, about setting up a power of attorney, just in case, so someone can help you manage things if you ever need it. She slid a legal document on top of the brochures. It's just paperwork. Dad, a precaution. You would still be in control, but I'd be able to step in and help. I looked at the form, then at my daughter's expectant face. This was the woman I had held as a baby, the woman I had walked down the aisle. Now, she was asking me to sign away my life. I don't know, Laura, I said slowly. This is a lot to think about. She patted my hand, her touch feeling cold. Of course, no pressure. Just think about it. We can talk more next week. After Laura left, I waited until her car disappeared around the corner before I moved. I photographed every document she had left on the kitchen table, the glossy brochures for the assisted living facilities, the unsigned power of attorney forms that would sign away my rights, and sent them immediately to Detective Maria Gomez. But a nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach told me this wasn't the whole picture. Laura had seemed too prepared, too organized for this to be a sudden decision. She had specific forms, specific arguments. I needed to know how deep this went. I went down to the basement, to the small, dusty office area where Joan used to keep our lives in order. The filing cabinet still stood in the corner, a beige metal monolith that held 40 years of tax returns, insurance policies, and property deeds. Since Joan passed, I hadn't brought myself to sort through it. I had left it as a shrine to her orderly mind, terrified that moving a single paper would somehow erase a part of her. But today, fear outweighed grief. I started going through it systematically, box by box, folder by folder, looking for anything that didn't belong. It took me nearly an hour of sifting through memories and dust, but I found what I was looking for in the back of the bottom drawer, stuffed behind a stack of old utility bills from the 90s. It was a plain manila folder, unmarked and distinct from Joan's meticulous labeling system. My hands trembled as I pulled it out and laid it on the workbench. I opened it, and the air in the basement seemed to drop 10 degrees. Inside were medical assessment forms, the official kind used by doctors to determine capacity. They were already pre-filled with my personal information, but the clinical sections were completed in pencil, ticking off symptoms I had never experienced: persistent confusion, short-term memory loss, inability to manage daily hygiene, and aggression. It was a portrait of a man who didn't exist, a complete fabrication designed to strip me of my autonomy before I even had a chance to defend myself. Beneath those were guardianship petition templates, Ontario government forms for declaring someone incapable of managing their own property. My name was typed into the respondent field, looking stark and final against the white paper. Digging deeper into the stack, I found financial documents, detailed printouts of my bank accounts, my investment portfolios, and even a copy of the deed to my house. Someone had been incredibly thorough. They knew exactly what I was worth down to the cent. But the most damning piece of evidence was at the very bottom of the stack. It was a single sheet of lined paper, covered in handwriting I recognized immediately. I had been reading that handwriting on birthday cards and Christmas letters for 43 years. It was Laura's script, loopy and distinct. At the top, she had written timeline. I read the list, and each line felt like a physical blow. Stage 1, establish pattern of confusion, October-December. Stage 2, get POA signed January. Stage 3, file for guardianship, February. Stage 4, access accounts. Sell house, spring. There was a scrawled note at the bottom, an addendum that made my blood run cold. M says we need to move faster. Dad's health is too good. Window closing. M. Marcus Sterling. The man she was dating. The convicted fraudster. My daughter had written a step-by-step business plan to erase her own father, orchestrated by a criminal she hardly knew. I wasn't in the basement anymore. I was transported back to a memory from 25 years ago. Laura was standing beside me at the barbecue, 18 years old and home from her first year at university. "Dad," she had said, watching the burgers sizzle, "I don't know if I can do this. University is hard. Everyone seems smarter than me." I had put my arm around her shoulders. "Laura, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You worked hard to get there. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are." She had leaned into me then. "Thanks, Dad. I don't know what I'd do without you." The memory shattered, leaving me standing in the cold light of the basement, holding papers that proved my daughter had decided she could do just fine without me. "Provided she had my money, you'll never have to find out," I had told her then. How wrong I was. I gathered everything carefully, photographing each page with steady, deliberate hands. I wasn't just a father anymore. I was a witness to my own attempted murder, not of my body, but of my life. I walked up the stairs, the weight of the betrayal heavy in my legs, and dialed Detective Gomez. "I found it," I said, my voice sounding strange and hollow to my own ears. "I found their plan. They wrote it all down." "Everything?" she asked. "Everything," I confirmed. "The timeline, the medical forms, the financial targets. It's all here." The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life, a blur of coordinated deception and sleepless nights. Detective Maria Gomez worked tirelessly with her team, gathering additional evidence and monitoring Laura's communications through legal channels, building a case that would be impenetrable in court. I continued playing my role to perfection, the confused old man, the vulnerable senior who needed help understanding the simplest tasks. Laura came by twice more, and each time she pushed a little harder, brought more documents, and asked more probing questions about my finances, my health, and my plans for the future. I watched her drive away one evening, feeling nothing but a cold void where my love used to be. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Detective Gomez. "We have something," she said when I answered, her voice tight. "We intercepted a conversation between Laura and Marcus Sterling this afternoon. The recording is muffled, but the content is clear. I think you need to hear this, Mr. Bryan, but I warn you, it is not going to be easy." "Play it," I said, staring into the darkness of my living room. The recording started with a burst of static, then settled into the ambient noise of a car interior. "He's going to sign next week," Laura's voice said, sounding strained and anxious. "The power of attorney. Everything is good. He believes me." Marcus's voice cut in, smooth, terrifyingly professional, and laced with impatience. "Good. Once you have the POA, we move immediately to the next phase. Guardianship application. Capacity assessment. We can't wait for nature to take its course." "Laura." "I know," she replied, her voice smaller now. "But he looks fine. He's healthy." "It feels wrong," Marcus scoffed, a cruel sound that made my skin crawl. "That's the problem. He's too healthy. If we wait, he might figure it out, or he might live another 20 years. We don't have 20 years. We don't even have 20 days. Think about the numbers." "Laura," Marcus continued, his tone shifting from urgent to seductive. "The master manipulator at work. The house alone is worth nearly $2 million. His investments are another $800,000, plus the life insurance when the time comes." A long pause followed, filled only by the hum of the engine. "He's my father, Marcus," she whispered, a last shred of conscience surfacing. "He's an old man sitting on a fortune he will never use." Marcus countered sharply. "Think about your situation. Your debts cleared. Your business saved. A fresh start. All you have to do is get that signature. Do you want to lose everything you've built, or do you want to secure your future?" "I can't lose the business," she said, her voice trembling with desperation. "Then do what needs to be done. Liquidate the assets as soon as the ink is dry. By the time he realizes what's happened, it will be too late. The recording ended with a sharp click, leaving me in absolute silence. I sat there, paralyzed by the revelation. My debts cleared. A fresh start. I hadn't known Laura was in financial trouble. I hadn't known her business was on the brink of collapse or that she was drowning in debt. She had never told me. The realization hit me harder than the theft itself. My daughter was in trouble, and instead of reaching for my hand, she had decided to cut my throat. Would I have helped her if she had asked? Of course. I would have remortgaged the house. I would have given her my savings. I was her father, but she hadn't asked. She had decided that I was worth more to her as a victim than as a parent. She didn't trust me to help her. She only trusted herself to take from me. Detective Gomez's voice returned to the line, soft and expectant. Mr. Bryan, are you still there? I'm here, I rasped, clearing my throat to push back the grief. She owes money, doesn't she? It appears she is in significant debt to various creditors, and Marcus Sterling has leveraged that desperation. Gomez explained, we have enough for an arrest now, but if you go through with the meeting at the lawyer's office, we can catch them in the act of fraud. We can nail them both with undeniable proof of conspiracy. I looked at the empty chair across the room where Joan used to sit, imagining what she would say. She would want justice, but she would be heartbroken. Set it up, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. I'll meet them. I'll look her in the eye. Let's finish this. Detective Maria Gomez called me the following Monday to confirm the operation. We are ready, she said, her voice clipped and professional. The meeting with the lawyer is a go. We will be listening. I drove to the law office on Wednesday morning, my hands gripping the steering wheel with a calmness that surprised me. Laura was waiting in the parking lot, beaming as if we were going to a family lunch rather than signing away my autonomy. Ready to get this done, Dad? She asked, opening my car door. Ready as I'll ever be, I replied, masking the revulsion I felt at her touch. We went inside together, taking the elevator to the third floor, where a small firm handled estate planning and family law. Laura had chosen this place, and I couldn't help but wonder how much Marcus Sterling had paid the lawyer to look the other way while they dismantled my life. The receptionist led us to a conference room where a man in a sharp gray suit was already waiting. He introduced himself as Jeffrey Bloom, Laura's legal contact. Mr. Bryan, he said warmly, extending a manicured hand. So good to finally meet you. Laura has told me so much about you. Shall we get started? He wasted no time, spreading documents across the mahogany table, power of attorney forms, banking authorizations, healthcare directives, everything a person would need to take complete, irrevocable control of another human being. If you will just sign here, Bloom said, uncapping a heavy fountain pen and pointing to a line on the first page. And here, an initial here. I picked up the pen, feeling its weight, and looked from the papers to my daughter's expectant face. She was practically vibrating with anticipation. Before I sign anything, I said quietly, setting the pen down on the table with a deliberate click, I would like to understand exactly what I am agreeing to. Laura's smile flickered, a crack appearing in her mask. It's just standard stuff. Dad, we went over this, didn't we? I leaned back in my chair, meeting her eyes. Because I don't remember discussing how you plan to have me declared mentally incapable, I said, my voice steady. Or how you change my life insurance beneficiary without my knowledge. Or how your boyfriend, Marcus Sterling, served time in prison for doing exactly this to another family in British Columbia. The color drained from Laura's face so fast she looked like a ghost. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, looking to Bloom for help. But the lawyer had gone rigid. The conference room door burst open. Detective Gomez walked in, followed by two uniformed officers, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Laura Morrison, she announced, her voice filling the room. You are under arrest for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel without delay. Laura stood up so fast her chair fell backward with a crash. "This is insane, Dad. Tell them this is a mistake," she screamed, panic rising in her throat. I looked at my daughter, at the terror in her eyes, and saw the stranger she had become. "It is not a mistake," I said coldly. "I have heard everything. Laura. The phone calls with Marcus. Your plans for my house. My savings. My insurance. I know about the timeline you wrote in the basement. I know about all of it. That wasn't me. Marcus made me do it." She sobbed, tears streaming down her face as the officer took her arm. "Daddy, please, I was in trouble. I owed money. Marcus said this was the only way. I never wanted to hurt you." She struggled for a moment before going limp, looking small and defeated. "Daddy," she whimpered, the word broken. "Please, I'm your daughter. I thought about the little girl in the backyard, the teenager I helped with homework, the woman at Joan's funeral. My daughter would have asked for help," I said, my voice heavy with finality. "My daughter would have trusted me. You decided I was worth more as a victim than as a father." They let her out in handcuffs, leaving me alone in the silent conference room with the unsigned documents and the echo of her crying. They arrested Marcus Sterling that same afternoon at his apartment in Mississauga. He tried to run, making it as far as the elevator, with a suitcase full of cash, before officers intercepted him. Apparently, he had been preparing to disappear the moment the power of attorney was signed, leaving Laura to face the fallout alone. The investigation dragged on for months, peeling back layers of deceit that made my stomach turn. By winter, the full scope of their scheme was clear. Marcus had been targeting vulnerable seniors for years, using romantic relationships to find accomplices with family connections to wealth. Laura wasn't his first partner in crime, merely his most recent victim turned perpetrator. My daughter owed Marcus $230,000. Failed business loans, gambling debts she had hidden from everyone, and credit cards maxed out to keep up appearances. Marcus had paid off her most pressing creditors, then demanded repayment in the only currency he interested in, access to her family's assets. My assets? My life. My freedom. The trial took place in April. I didn't attend. I couldn't bring myself to sit in that cold courtroom and watch my daughter be judged, even if she deserved every bit of it. Marcus received 7 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and exploitation of a vulnerable person. His previous record in British Columbia ensured the judge showed no leniency. Laura received a suspended sentence, 2 years of probation, full restitution of the money she had already siphoned from my accounts, and a permanent criminal record that would follow her forever. The judge cited her cooperation with investigators and her lack of prior criminal history as reasons for the mercy. But to me, the sentence felt like a hollow footnote to the betrayal. I filed a restraining order immediately afterward. No contact, no calls, no letters. I changed my life insurance beneficiary to my son, Peter, and my grandchildren. I updated my will, changed all my passwords, and closed the compromised accounts. Connor helped me set up new security systems, cameras at the doors, motion sensors, and alerts on my financial accounts. The paranoid precautions of a man who learned too late that trust can be a weapon. My son Peter flew in from Vancouver that summer to help me settle into this new reality. We sat on my back deck one evening, watching the sun set over the garden Joan had planted so many years ago. "I can't believe Laura would do this," he said, shaking his head as he stared into his beer. "I keep thinking there must be some explanation." "There is an explanation," I said softly. "Desperation, debt, and a manipulative man who made the unthinkable seem easy. None of it excuses what she did, but I understand how it happened." Peter looked at me, his eyes sad. "Do you miss her?" I thought about it for a long time, listening to the wind in the trees. "I miss who she was," I answered finally, "or who I thought she was. But the woman who planned to take my freedom, I don't know her at all." We sat there until the stars came out, the silence between us filled with the ghosts of a fractured family. I turned 69 alone. No gifts this year, and I preferred it that way. The house feels different now. Quieter. Larger. I've thought about selling. About starting fresh, somewhere without memories in every room. But Joan's roses still bloom every spring. And the kitchen still smells like her cooking on Sunday mornings if I close my eyes tight enough. Some mornings I wake up and forget what happened. For a few blessed seconds, everything is normal. Then I remember, and the weight settles back onto my chest. But if you have stayed with me this far, I need you to know something important. I am not sharing this story on Golden Vengeance for sympathy. I am sharing it because it could happen to anyone. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in Canada. According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, seniors lose hundreds of millions of dollars every year to fraud, and a heartbreaking amount of it is committed by family members. The people we trust most are often the ones positioned to hurt us the worst. Here are the warning signs I wish I had recognized earlier. Pay attention, because they might save you. First, watch for unexpected gifts that seem too generous. If someone gives you an expensive electronic device, ask yourself why. Ask yourself who benefits from you being connected, monitored, and accessible. Second, be wary of family members who suddenly show increased interest in your finances. Questions about your accounts, your investments, or your insurance might come from genuine concern, or they might be reconnaissance for a theft. Third, notice if someone starts questioning your memory or capabilities. If a relative repeatedly suggests you are confused, forgetful, or incapable when you know you are not, ask yourself whether that is true or whether they are building a narrative to undermine your autonomy. Fourth, never sign documents you don't fully understand. Power of attorney is a powerful tool. In the right hands, it protects you, but in the wrong hands, it destroys you. Fifth, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if a smile feels rehearsed or a question feels invasive, it probably is. The discomfort you feel is your mind recognizing a threat before your heart is willing to admit it. Finally, know that it is never too late to ask for help. Talk to someone you trust. A doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, or a friend. Isolation is the predator's greatest weapon, and connection is your greatest defense. My daughter made her choices, and I have made mine. We don't speak anymore, and I don't know if we ever will. Some nights I still dream about that little girl in the backyard, the one who made me birthday cards out of construction paper. I wake up reaching for a past that doesn't exist anymore. But I am still here, still standing, and still free. That is something. Maybe that is enough. If you are watching this video, wherever you are, protect yourself. Protect the people you love. And remember that, sometimes, the greatest threat comes wrapped in birthday paper from someone who calls you dad. Stay safe out there, and thank you for listening to an old man's story.